Hi, this is Freedom of Fitness from Holistic Songwriting. Today we're talking about 5 tips for writing the perfect lyrics to a love song. Tip number 1, structuring with direction. All too many times I see songwriters write something that I call list lyrics. And basically they start out with something like, I love your hair, I love your lips, I love your eyes, I love your hands, I love your hair. And by the second verse, that's turned into something like, I love your left heel, I love your right heel, I love your chin, I love your shoulders, I guess. So they kind of run out of things to say and it just gets stupid very quickly. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is you want to figure out a way of structuring your song before you even start writing it. So you want to know exactly what you're going to say in your first verse, in your second verse, and in your bridge before you start writing a single line. And here's 3 structures that you can use for that. Number 1, me, you, us. You start in the first verse talking about yourself. I'm just this guy from Alabama. Second verse, you're this amazing woman from New York. Third verse or bridge, and together we're amazing. Number 2, past, present, future. Before I knew you, I didn't even brush my teeth every day. Today, everything's better and I've gotten a better person. And in future, I never want this to end and I want this to go on forever. And number 3 is false. This is a kind of tricky one, but for a good example of this, check out Music and Lyrics, the movie with Hugh Grant, where he sings a song for Drew Barrymore in the 3rd act. And basically the idea is you need a lot of humor for this one. Don't just list faults of her because this is going to backfire very quickly. So this is a tricky one to use and it can be very dangerous. But if you do it right, this is extremely powerful because it opens up your significant other and then you can really, do a home run with your big message at the end of your song. But basically, you talk about things that she's doing wrong, and in the movie he says something like, you constantly forget to water my plants, stuff like that. So he's listing all these things that are just kind of funny and charming. That's kind of the thing that you want to do with this 3rd way of structuring your song. Tip number 2 is using the right words. And there's 5 tips that I have for you guys here. Number 1, be specific. Don't write just another generic love song. We have too many of those already in the world. Write about specific situations that have happened between you and your significant other. Because if someone is out there who's lived through something similar, and believe me, it's the world, everyone has, there's definitely some other people who have lived through something very similar to what you've gone through. And if they hear that, they're going to be like, oh my God, that song was written about me because this is so specific, no one else could know about this. And that really has so much more of an emotional impact on people than if they hear yet another generic love song. Number 2, be charming. Use a lot of humor, really important, always goes over well. Number 3, be emotional. This is what I call using power words, and I always use the comparison. If you use the word fish, that doesn't have a lot of emotion, but if you use the word shark, that does have a lot of emotional impact, and that's the stronger word. That's the emotional power word that you want to use. And there's a whole article on my website, on my blog, which you can read all about power words if you want to learn more about this. Number 4, be yourself. Don't use words that you don't normally use. Don't use longer words. Don't be over-emotional if that's not your style in real life. Don't rhyme just because you want to rhyme. If the lyrics don't make sense, then just be yourself. That's kind of the most important thing. You want to, if your significant other really loves you, they love you for who you are, hopefully, and they want you to be yourself in the song as well, and they don't want you to put on an act. And number 5, go with your guts. All the tips that I'm giving you are just guidelines. If you want to write a 50-minute love song, up to you. If you know your significant other is going to like it, obviously do it. But go with your guts. That's kind of the most important thing. There is no wrong or right here. It's always, as always with songwriting, it's about writing about your emotions and stuff like that. But obviously, go with your guts. Really, really important, especially in something as important as an honest love song. Number 3, be careful with metaphors. Metaphors are tricky because they so easily can disguise what you're trying to say with the song. So you don't want to use too many metaphors, or you don't want to use unclear metaphors. First of all, there's the worst kind of metaphors is the one that is a cliched metaphor, stuff like you are the light, or you are my heart only beats for you. Stuff like that is just terrible. Just never ever use metaphors like that. But then there's the other metaphors which are so abstract that no one gets them anymore. So what you want to use is metaphors that are very clear and that really make it clear what you're trying to say. And if you have someone, an extreme example of this might be you talk about the birds and the bees and they don't understand what you're talking about, right? So you want to be clear with your metaphors. And obviously, Birds and the Bees is a very clear metaphor, but and a very cheesy one at that. You know, you don't want to use metaphors that no one understands. You want to be clear in your message. You don't want the song to end and her to be like, oh, that's a nice song, thank you, you know, and she doesn't understand what the song is about at all, or he. Number 4 is don't use cliches. We've already talked about this a little bit. You know, just don't use those corny lines. You know, even saying I love you might, I think that's a kind of tricky line. It depends very much on how you say it. But saying I love you in a love song is kind of a cliche already. So I think there's stronger ways of saying it than, you know, going all flat out saying I love you. So there's a lot of leeway there, but be very careful about using cliches and corny stuff. If you feel like you've heard it before, it's probably not a good idea to use it. And lastly, number 5, use contrast. We've already kind of talked about that with the false structure. By opening her up, you know, you start kind of negative, and that way you kind of make her vulnerable, and then, you know, the contrast is even stronger when you deliver your big message. That has a lot of impact. And what I always recommend for writing love songs is to start out small, start very grounded in reality, start very honest, very real, very, you know, no bullshit. And then later in the song, you sort of evolve that into something more emotional, bigger, grander, and more, you know, just, I mean, you could say naive, I guess, but like, you know, evolve it into something more anthemic, if you will. That's it. If you want more, you can check out this website by clicking on the download button below for the free Ultimate Songwriting Toolkit, which includes 143 commercial chord progressions, 201 song titles, and 3 song arrangements. You can also please subscribe and comment below, check the blog, and follow us on Facebook. Thank you very much for watching. This is Friedman Fidas from Holistic Songwriting, and see you next week.